Decisions, decisions, decisions. That's what today's video is all about. So a couple of years, my son moved out of state. He didn't just move out of state. He moved as far away as he possibly could across the country. And he lives in the same state, actually just a couple of towns away from my brother. So that's one of the reasons that he moved there. So my husband and I have been, taking vacations and going back and forth like every quarter to every 6 months back to see my son. And it's very expensive between the hotels, eating food out, the inconvenience of trying to figure out all of what you need to do once you get there. And really it hinders how long you can stay because hotels are just so ridiculously expensive, and eating out, and every trip costs us thousands, which we don't really have thousands to be doing this several times a year. So we've been trying to decide if there's other options, living there part-time and maybe staying where we are here part-time. So I have twin boys, and one of them lives like 15 minutes from me. The other one used to live 15 minutes from me, but now he's, across the country. So I'm used to seeing my family all the time. It's really been difficult being separated from my son. And the minute I leave, I want to go back. But then part of me wants to be here because I have my other son and my grandkids here. It's been much harder than I ever thought it was going to be. So my husband and I are actually contemplating buying a very, very, very small, inexpensive condo where my son lives. He actually lives in Minnesota. So we have been looking online. We've decided that this next trip that we take in the next few weeks, we're actually going to be looking at a couple of condos. And we're not going to buy anything this trip. We just want to get a feel rather than just looking on the computer to see, the areas and kind of what we can afford, which, when you think about it, I didn't ever plan on buying a second home. So what I can afford, nothing. Now, I could consider selling the house that we live in now and taking that equity and maybe buying something smaller here and then something there. That doesn't sound real appealing to me. In the town that I live in, there's just not a lot of senior housing or good condo type living here, which is what I'd really be looking for in my next home. Just something that's just easier to manage and not so much work. And so my husband and I both have a lot of decisions to make right now. So I just wanted to talk to you about some of the things that you think about when a loved one moves out of state, and how you kind of process it and work through it. And just like the knee replacement journey, I didn't know that I was going to be making 20 videos on a knee replacement, but I did. And I'm thinking that this might be a journey that some people want to follow with me or take with me. So if we end up getting something there and we can work it out, I think I'm going to document this journey for anyone else that's maybe considering it or going through it. Maybe I can show you some of the pitfalls or the mistakes I make or the things that we do right. So one of the first things that we've had to consider is the financial part of it. Everything right now is so expensive. I live in California currently, and it's through the roof. So even looking in Minnesota, I would have thought it would be a lot cheaper to move there, but it's really not. Everything's expensive, I think, everywhere. But I am looking at, very small 1-2 bedroom condo, maybe 1 or 2 baths. And really in Minnesota, I think if we're not living there full time, which we won't be, we have to consider the weather. We have to consider having some place that we don't have to worry about the pipes freezing or our roof caving in from too much snow, or who knows what else could happen there. I know the weather is a lot different than it is here in sunny Southern California. We've kind of looked at our budget, and we don't have a huge budget to buy something. We don't really want to add in a big payment. Our home right now, we've been working very hard to try to become debt-free, to get our house paid off. It's not paid off, but we're working towards that. So the last thing we want to do is take on another house payment. I'm also in need of a car right now. I've been driving the same car for almost 11 years. I've worn it to death, and it was already used when I got it. And now with a third grandchild, like, I'm in a situation, I can't take all 3 grandkids and me in my car together. It's just not big enough. So I'm trying to figure out, how to deal with a car. And now this new expense of buying a house or a condo or something out of state. And there's just so many things to think about. So I've started looking online at condos, and there are really quite a few condos. Now, if we look at getting something in the city, like something in maybe downtown Minneapolis, those actually are a lot less expensive, and there is public transportation and all kinds of things going on downtown. But it's also a higher crime. It's just reality. Now, I keep thinking to myself, I'm looking at these 55 plus condos, that a lot of them are high-rise condos, and they have secure parking, secure building, all of that I think is very secure. You can't just walk in and go to someone's door. It doesn't work like that. And I thought, if I got something on like the 3rd or the 4th floor, perhaps that might be an option, that it would be safe enough for us to live in the city. I mean, it's considerably cheaper, considerably. And it's not too far from my son. I mean, he lives in the suburbs. And like I said, we don't want to consider buying a house there, because then we've got the worry of the weather and the maintenance and leaving a house vacant. A condo in a 55 plus community, it's going to be a lot easier to lock it up and come back here and that kind of thing. So those are some of the things we're thinking about as far as the weather and the money. So I've kind of resigned myself at this point. I really wanted to get a nice, big, comfortable car. I've kind of had something in mind for a long time, and I don't think I'm going to get it. I think it's just off the map at this point. And I'm looking at possibly getting a car through my brother. He has an opportunity to occasionally pick up like used fleet cars at a discount. So that might be something that I look at getting maybe by next summer, the spring or next summer. And maybe taking the money we were going to invest in a car and putting that towards a condo. That's something I'm thinking of. We don't really want to finance anything because, like I said, we don't want to take on another payment. So that means going into retirement money and money that we need to live on to consider buying something. But when you look at the costs associated and the inconvenience of staying in hotels, eating out, renting a car, airfare, all this nonsense, I mean, we're spending thousands every year on something that's really very uncomfortable. And we thought, if we had our own bed, our own comfortable chairs, a desk where we can do computer work and, make it comfortable so it's ours, we still would have the expense of utilities and an HOA. And the HOAs there are actually very expensive. And I think it's, again, because of the weather. I think having a heated garage and heated storage away from the condo and people removing ice from the driveway and snow and all this other stuff, I think it's a lot of extra money that we don't pay for here in Southern California. We just don't have those same concerns. The other thing that I thought about, and I'm not as keen on this, I'm still researching it, is to consider buying something there and then making it kind of a vacation rental, whatever. And then when we're in town, we just use it ourselves. I don't particularly like that idea. I don't know why. I know hotels, it's the same thing. You're turning over every day. You're having different people stay there. But when it's your own home, I don't know. I just worry about them hurting furniture and scratching up the walls and ruining carpet. And, people just aren't as careful when it's not their own home. So that is kind of a concern, and it's just not as appealing. It just seems like it would be a lot more work and a lot more hassle, but you would get some kind of an income that may pay the costs when you're not there. So it is something that we're considering. I think another consideration for a second home or a vacation home would be tax implications. So it is heading towards the end of the year, so we will be meeting with our tax professional, sometime in early 2025. So we do want to talk to him. I do have a couple of small businesses that I operate, and my husband is getting very close to retiring. In the next year to 2 years, he'll be retiring and operating a small business as well. So we definitely want to find out how we can manage that in a second home, and if there are some tax advantages or things that we could take advantage of that we're not aware of at this point. So that's something else, since we are talking about taxes, to think about. Now, when I did say earlier we don't want a mortgage payment on a second home or a vacation home, there may be some advantages to having a mortgage. It's my understanding that as long as it's your primary or, a personal residence, not your primary residence, but as long as it's a personal residence and you use it as a vacation or a second home, that you can write off your mortgage interest. So the other thing to think about, at least that I have on my mind, is now that I'm getting a little bit older, I'll be 65 in the next couple weeks, and how much work and hassle is it going to be maintaining 2 residences? I mean, I think it's a lot of work just maintaining one. And there's 2 schools of thought. One, I think to myself that at some point, maybe we sell the house we're in and get something that's less work here. I mean, we do have a large parcel of property. I do use it all. We have fruit trees and gardens and a swimming pool and all kinds of things here that I've always wanted. But it's a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of work to maintain it, to keep it up. We're working on it all the time. So the thought of like a condo or a townhome where you don't have all that work is very appealing. The other thing is we've always had a dog. So, we have a backyard. We need to let the dog out, just let it out. It can go run around, do its thing. I don't know when I'm 90 if I want to be out, in a condo walking a dog every hour. It's a concern. And I definitely don't want to be worrying about shoveling snow and, falling on the ice and all this other stuff. So there's just so many things to think about. But at this point, we are going to start exploring. And I'm going to document it, whether we buy or whether we don't buy, and let you know, the things that are going right and wrong throughout this process. And maybe it'll help somebody else going through this at the very beginning. I don't know. I would like to think so. So anyway, that's where I am. Those are some of the decisions. I am looking forward to this next trip to see my son. It's going to be it's going to be very nice to see him. I haven't seen him now for a few months, and I'm missing him quite a bit. So, anyway, I hope this is of interest to you. If it is, if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to my channel. Give me a like, a thumbs up, or ring the bell for future notifications, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.